this needs to be on both sides. So there's a few ways to do this, but the cool thing is that we kind of know it should fit right on both sides because it came from a tiling texture. So in theory, the easiest solution would go to Move Tool, grab this object, and ignore this Move Tool position. Oh, okay, I guess I have to show you this too. If you want this Move Tool, this pivot point is virtual. It's always virtual. It's not like the object's pivot point. It never cares about the object's pivot point. It's just a virtual pivot point, meaning that I can move it anywhere I want. If I push Alt, all of a sudden this thing pops open. See how the lock moved to open? And then now it's closed. Alt, and moving around it opens it, and moving around it's closed, okay? So there's two things you can do. You can do when you have Alt on here. One more thing I was going to tell you too. Rotating around, if you hold Shift, it snaps it to directions, okay? So hold that Shift, it'll get you back to a straight direction. In this case, you want to look at that face looking at you. If I hold Alt and then I click on this rotate, it'll rotate this so it's pivoting correctly in the world. If I click on this little marker, like a map marker button, it centers the pivot point with the Alt button on the object. Bam, it's there. If I don't push the Alt button and I just click on it, it's going to do it anyway because it's going to prove me wrong. So hold on, let me try this one. Well, the problem is it's not rotated. So if you hold the Alt button, you can also rotate it any way you want and not affect the object, okay? If I push this now, it's going to rotate the object so this pivot point matches the position. So if you don't want that, you always want to kind of click this with that. And then you can move it by hand by grabbing it just like any move tool. You can't really scale it, but you can move it to where you want it to be or wherever you click. If you click on this face, this pixel right here, with the Alt button selected, it moves to that pixel. And then you'll see it's not rotated correctly because that pixel is probably different. So all you have to do is click this button and it will rotate it back to default. It doesn't matter where you click, it will do that for you. And then you can always go back to the center. You can go to the center and move it over and stuff like this too. So that's first off. So if you want to move stuff and your pivot points like up here, just click this button to reset it and make sure it's pivoted right when you're set. Okay, just make sure you have that Alt button. The other thing is that Zbrush does some funky things, as you've already seen, with pivot points, with Symmetry. Okay, Symmetry is not based off of the object. It's based, let me say that again, Symmetry is not based off the object, it's based off the world. Okay, so, for example, where you can see the world pivot point is you click this floor button, and I look at it, and then I do the Move tool. You'll see that there's the pivot points right in the center of the world. If I say Symmetry now, and remember the Symmetry button is in deformation, and then it's mirror. It's not Symmetry, it's mirror. And I mirror it, it flips to this side. The other thing about mirror Symmetry in Zbrush is it's always from left to right. So if you want to go from right to left, you need to first flip it and then do it again. So there's just no, it's just flipping the direction of the object. It's not mirroring the object, I should say. It's not symmetrical, but it's flipping the object even though it says mirror. It's just replacing the direction it's going. So if I do this again, this side, if I do this mirror, it'll go from here. This slant is bigger to this side. So I push mirror, it pops it over to that side, okay? If I wanted this side to be asymmetrical, which is where that problem comes in, so I want to do Symmetry. Like in Max, I'm a machine when it comes to Symmetry. Symmetry is my life. So if you don't do Symmetry, you're spending your life too much doing too much extra work. So if I come in here and I go to Modify Topology and I go to Mirror and Weld, which is essentially Symmetry based off the center of the world, if I click that button, it's set to X, by the way, by default. You can see the little X is highlighted. And I do it, it's going to mirror this side to this side. If I want this side to be mirrored to both sides, I have to do something different. So watch. Now it's both of them that way. Both of them are facing this way. Not what I want. What if I wanted it over here? Then I would go back to mirror, flip it, and then do mirror and weld. So now both of them are symmetrical to that heavier slant. That's the reason I have mirror and weld down here in my bottom shortcuts, because I often use them together, just so you see that. So what's the big deal? Let me do this again so we can see they're different. I'm going to move this over here. There's your pivot point of the world. If I do mirror now, it moves the pivot point of the object off the world. Okay? So I'm not actually, if I do mirror and weld, it just duplicates the object. It's just like symmetry. Okay, so, which is interesting because you would think that it would be nothing because there's nothing over here, but apparently it defaulted to adding one because when I did it over here. But anyway, so if we go back to the original object here, if I look at this object and I make sure the pivot point is in the center of the world, since I haven't really moved it much since I had it, if I do mirror and weld, it will now be a symmetry over here. So the problem with the symmetry on this side is, look at this. They're both, basically it's the same thing on the other side as it is on this side. Okay, so there's another thing we can do. We can come down to modify topology, we can go to position, which is right above size, and we can see it's at 1.0495. So we can click on it, copy it, duplicate the object. In this case, it's going to be, the shortcut for this, I'll tell you as I show you, but it's this duplicate button, and it's Control-Shift-D. So if you want to duplicate a layer or a sub-object, it's Control-Shift-D, just like that. And you see I just made a duplicate of it. Now if I go back to geometry position, and I do my arrow and say negative, now theoretically it should be exactly halfway from where the other one is. But as you can see, it's a little bit off. So there's always some kind of dance. One thing you could try to do, and well, in this case, we'll just move it. We'll grab this one, do this center, Alt buttoning pushed again, and just close that up a little bit. Really what I could do is just scale it or something, but I want to keep this line. Here's the big trick, right? This is where the symmetry works or doesn't work, is if this little rim, here, let me do it to make it a little bit more obvious. I need to delete this one. Delete object. Oh yeah, I have it down here now. There it is. I knew I had it somewhere. Delete. So it's going to delete that one. Back to this one. I'm going to take my Damien standard and just draw. Click here. And draw a line. So I have that line right there. Now I'm going to duplicate it. Control-Shift-D again, and then I'm going to do the mirror. And you can see it is lined up, but it's shorter on this side. So that just means when I originally made this brick set, this was a little bit shorter than this one originally is. Or if you really want to look at it, it's still, oh, that's one. I did it wrong again. So in this case, what was I going to do? I just want to, the easiest way to fix it is just move it over, honestly. Line it up with that line and you can figure out where it works and doesn't work and stuff. But the other thing to do is the numbers. So if I do negative on this one, not that. The problem is the negative. You have to go arrow over to get to the area so you can negative it and then say enter. You can see that it's really not negative, which just means that this brick is not centered in the world. It just ends up that it's a little bit further to the edge than this side was, which is good because that just means we just have to take this and move it over, and it should be good to go. Something like that. And there you go. Don't worry about the extra half hanging off when you do it. Don't worry about that. You should have these little wings, if you want to call them that. But that's the easiest way to do it. Come on, let me go. Okay, let me delete this one. Delete. And then back to this one. No, this one. There we go. Okay, so the easiest way to do it is to duplicate it and just move it in the negative space. That way it's not a mirror of itself, both of them facing the center, but it's the other, and then just move it in. It should be really close or matching, and there's other dances you can do, and we can fix it. It's super easy to fix if we had to. But, for now, that's where we'll start, and then we'll get nitpicky when we get it to the next part. Because doing this to get you started is going to be fine, and then we'll come back and mess with it after. Okay. Everybody get that, though? Understanding? Yeah? Okay. Like I said, it's recording, so we'll talk about that again. Okay, so we turn this back off. All right. So the other thing we want to do first, and then we're going to take a break, is import in these other brushes, these orb brushes we've heard of. I have put in your homework somewhere, I don't want to give them to you even though they're free, and then you'll see it's 0, meaning you don't have to pay for it. You can just type in 0. I want this, make sure you're logged in, and you can download the brushes. Okay. Once you do that, you get all of these brushes for free. So what a brush is, if we look at Damien's Standards, a really simple brush, it's an alpha channel and some other settings they put into the brush. There's some settings that you can talk about the curve, and you can talk about other things. You can say it has, there's a few brushes that have, the problem with the brushes is they put them in stroke too, so the controls over the brushes are sometimes in stroke. But anyway, there's a bunch of functions that they have, and this is just pre-done. This is simple enough, but it's more than just that, the way this is set up. It's not just this alpha, which you could use in Photoshop too, but it's more than that. So if we do this brush, how do we get it into to ZBrush? All we do is we go to the brush menu at the top. It's alphabetical, so you click on the brush menu and you click on this little circle, and it'll put it over on your left-hand side. And then, and you can do this from here. I just like to have them all here anyway. But then you'll see that I can just come up here and say load brush. And inside load brush, if it's a, yeah, you suck, is FG tools, brushes, or brush, is the or brushes. And you just grab one. The first one I'll grab, in this case, is like rock detail. And what it is an alpha and some other settings. And it usually is, in his case, it gives you a screenshot of what the brush looks like when it's active. So what does this one do? This one is a drag out and does this. And it does this nice sculptural kind of stone feel to it. So it's a really good one. I wouldn't go hog wild with it though. Just simple. If you're going to do it once, and then, you know, pick another one. And if you want to do it smaller or something, you could do it bigger. It's really just to give you some more life to your bricks, not to really do, because you can easily go crazy on this one too. Give me like I want it here and here and here and here and all this stuff overlapping, and now I got a realistic rock and stuff. That's kind of what rock people do with realistic stuff. They just keep adding layers. When we use it for our class, we're going to do really simple stuff. We just want it to feed into what we're sculpting, not to be the sculpt. Okay. All right. So undo that, and then we'll come back in and say load brush, and I'll come into some rubble. There's 4 different rubbles. They're all really cool. We'll do 3 and say open, and it's just this rock, right? But if I go to here, it pushes a rock onto the surface, or if I hold Alt, it cuts a rock into the surface, so you now get stuff that looks like these things, these little pock marks that they put everywhere. Okay. Another one is this one, and these brushes don't do everything for you. They do a lot of it, but you're still gonna have to do some artwork. So like that's that one, and obviously the way he did it. Oh, I know what he did. Like, what are you doing? The way he did it was a lot smaller. And each one of those rock brushes, or those rubble brushes, is a little bit different. So like rubble 1, yeah, there's a couple of them. You know, and you can get all kinds of fun stuff with it. And I'll show you eventually how to make these brushes for yourself. They're really fast and really cool. There's just a couple of little tricks you have to do to make this. So basically what he did is he sculpted these rocks, and then from that he pulled a brush out, and now he uses that brush as over and over again. It's kind of like what we're doing with trim sheets, really. All right, so the next one is in load brush. We're going to use cracks first. We'll try cracks. I think I actually like slash better, but yeah, flat. Slash is a big fatty, so you can just kind of go like this, you know, do your slash work like this. In ZBrush, it's a pain, but if you click and then hold the shift button and then drag, and then let go of the shift button, that's the tricky part. It's totally opposite of what most people are used to, is you don't let go of the mouse, you let go of the shift, it'll do a straight line for you, okay? And I think that if you click shift and then control, no, it's always doing degrees here. So you can set it up to 90 or 0 or whatever. See, and I let go of the mouse before I let go of the shift and nothing happened. All right, another one which I like, are the slash. One is a fat one, I think. So this one's cool because you do it on the edge, and it just does these little slash marks that are kind of like what you see in a lot of them. So like they started as a slash mark, and then he added the cut between them. And then this is just a cut with some slash marks here. This is an easy way to do that. This is just a cut. There's other things he's done too, but what else? There also, that's a fat one. There's also one load brush that is, I think that this is the thinner one. Yeah, this is the thin one. And again, I'm pretty sure with Alt, it'll go outward. So now it's going outward. Not that that happens often, but it's there. Okay. And then you can click on this and say slash. This has a little bit of a crack on the edges of them. You can also see what they're doing. Another reason, if you leave this open, all your brushes you've used recently show up in here. So you don't have to always go back to brush mode wherever you last used them. They're all just right here for you to use. Even if you wanted to, you could say, I know I'm using this today, so I'm going to drag this over to here and throw it in, and then turn off your enable customize, and just don't save it. We'll explain why you don't want to save it in a minute. So load brush, we'll come back and do /3, and this one's really thin, I guess. And it's like a really long slash. Just remember it's going to do this stuff on the side. So let's talk about that. How do we get some of the detail work that they had? That's the wrong one. Shortcut there. Like this part, how did he get it to look like it was bigger? Or how did he get it to feel like it carved in just that? That's pretty much just a detail brush and it's certainly laid out. But another thing you can do is use the masking tool. So we haven't talked much about the masking tool except for how to use it and how it uses the same shortcut as Dynamesh. But what a masking tool does is it masks, it basically says sculpt, no sculpt areas. Wherever you select is the sculpt areas, it's the darkened areas, or is the non-sculpt areas, and everything that's not selected that stays the standard color is the area that gets sculpted on. So for example, if I hold Control, just like I'm doing in Dynamesh, and I drag a box, but I cross the surface of the object, I am now putting a mask on the object. It doesn't do anything else but allow me to, let me go with the standard brush, only sculpt at that point, okay? So it's only letting me sculpt on that. So, wrong button there. Hello, go away. Go away, thank you. So one other thing you can do with this is you can smooth it or make it sharper. In this case, it's pretty sharp. Just like before though, I want to point out that if I hold this up here, you see it says mask pin. If I click on it, there's a bunch of different options like mask lasso, which means I can just do like this and say I want to mask just that area or whatever, so you can have that kind of control. But if I hold Control, and it's on the mask brush right there, and I click inside the masked area, it actually softens it. If I click again, it'll keep softening it up. So it makes it a little bit more gradient between where you want. On the other hand, if I push Alt and Control, I can also deselect areas, okay? Just like the opposite. Basically, Alt is your opposite button for everything. So if I come back to here and I go to Mask Pen, and then I do Alt and drag, it's going to unmask that area that I have right there. And then again, if I double click or if I click on an area that's not masked like this, it sharpens it. So I can smooth it or sharpen it. You also have controls in here, masking, that are very much the same thing. Blur or sharpen, same kind of thing. It's just the shortcut way of doing it. It's the way I think. So you can also say grow, make it bigger, and you'll see it's very small, and that also depends on how many polygons you have. I'm going to go here and just keep pushing it like this. Okay. And then I'm going to come back to, and this is also 100%. You can also do like half strength and stuff like that, because when you push it, automatically you'll see the RGB intensity goes up to 100. That means it's full mask. So if I come back to my brush and I use that detail brush off the object here and drag, and actually why don't we turn this up? and then deselect it, I can see that I've gotten my brush really crazy doing stuff on here, and it's only part of it. Here's the other thing. This is the one that I use that doesn't always work well, play well with others. Okay, it's by default inside of ZBrush. Let me go to this one. This is my clay buildup brush. I'm going to deselect. Clay buildup brush is a great brush, but the problem with it is, I'm going to make it really big here. If I do this, it goes all the way through the object and sculpts on the other side. Basically, it's grabbing every vert and goes both directions all the way through. So, what you want to do is tell it to basically what you're doing in Photoshop or in Max, right? If you select an object, you say ignore backfacing. We want to say the same thing inside of ZBrush, which I've set to backface mesh. Unfortunately, that's located in, it's not alpha, it's located in brush. Yes, it's in brush and it's in auto masking, and it's this button right there. Now when I do that same stroke, it's only on the front side. It's not going to grab anything from the back. So, like if I do that again, I go to here and I turn that back off, and then I go to that other brush, this rock detail one, and I turn on the backface mask, and then I drag it out. It's only going to do it to the front side. Okay, so that's one of those things, and obviously I exaggerated how much to use it, but that's one of those things that I use. The problem with it is if you use this brush, this control up here, it says it cannot work. And there's some things that don't work with the backface mask turned off, but that's fine. We aren't going to get to that point yet. All right. Had enough? Ready for more? Okay. So the thing is, I know that a lot of people struggle just getting stuff done in Max to get it to ZBrush. Because all that people asking questions, and that's totally fine. I get it, but we still have to keep moving forward. Now I can slow some of the stuff down, and I know I just added a bunch of stuff to you, and it's 1:30. But we still have to do this kind of stuff here, because this weekend all you have to do is sculpt the whole thing. If you're late with turning this in, if you're not happy with it, turn something in so I can see where you're at. And then return it in on Monday, or turn in the other one on Monday and note and say, I've updated it, it should look better now. It's totally fine. We're not grading you on it being perfect at this point, otherwise I wouldn't give you an extra weekend to work on it. I'm grading you on you working on it during the time you've given so I can make sure that you're going forward. And I know most of you have because you've been asking questions. But we need you in ZBrush and doing all this stuff. And believe it or not, all this stuff I'm showing you is the tip of the iceberg. And the stuff you've learned in Max, tip of the iceberg. But eventually, second nature. Totally second nature. Okay? Don't get stressed about it. Like I've said 100 times, I'm not here to break you. I'm here to teach you, and hopefully that means you'll learn. Keep asking questions. I appreciate all the people asking questions on Help Me I'm Stuck, and answering questions on Help Me I'm Stuck. I'm almost going to make it mandatory, maybe not this class, that everybody has to ask at least 5 questions through the whole semester, because there's some place that somebody's going to get stuck. A lot of people don't like to ask questions, but it's not good. You should totally get used to it, get over the ego, and just be like, I'm totally stupid, I don't get it. Okay? Totally expected.